we'll get started. I just flew in from vacation, and boy, are my arms tired. David is seeing how many microphones he can put in front of me so it can look like a press conference. Thank you for joining us today. It is April 4th, and we are ready to rock and roll. We have an agenda that is quite different from the agenda that we shared about an hour ago because we remembered some things that we wanted to discuss with you. The first thing, real quick, we had a data sharing agreement training on March 20th. Any of you out there, were you able to attend? Can I set this to where I don't hear myself?
No. Coming through from your speaker.
It's this feedback from up here at the speakers.
Oh.
I don't see any notes.
No, I don't. I think it's coming from Jerry's sister. From you.
Did any of you that are listening in, did any of you attend this March 20th training? Yes? Okay. Any feedback from that training? First of all, we are putting together a video recording, actually, of the training, and Jerry has finished the first. Jerry's our audio technical expert that's helping us with this, but he has the first half done. We have a lot of resources. Any comments about that training? I think we're going to send out an evaluation of that training. Sorry it took so long. I actually took a vacation, and we want to know what did you think for those of you that attended? Was it? I know the material wasn't totally exciting, but I thought it was really useful. Was it helpful to you? Was it anything you would have changed? We'll send an evaluation out to those that did attend. It was well attended, I think, and I found it to be helpful. So we are going to send out those resources. Those resources include a 23-page menu, kind of a guide for you to help you with data sharing agreements. And data sharing agreements can just be for data, or they can be attached to other vendor contracts. And it's so long because we have broken it down into language that you can actually understand. So we'll be putting those on our website along with the recording shortly, and we will email everyone out when those are available. I would now like to turn my time over to, what is this? To the Student Data Protection Act updates. Is this differences?
Yeah, that is.
Okay. David.
Hi, everyone. So there were several changes made to the Student Data Protection Act, mostly in Senate Bill 207 this past legislative session. And I wanted to go over those in a little bit more detail now that I've had time to recover from said legislative session. And several of the changes, honestly, are just kind of definition changes to make it align more clearly with FERPA. These are the ones I saw where it's like, okay, like you might actually have to do something about this. So one big difference is we have removed all references to cumulative records. Now, previously, the Act talked about cumulative records, which is kind of like the permanent record if you're holding on to something for more than 12 months. Now, the problem with this is it created something of a loophole, wherein if you were not collecting the data and holding on to it for more than 12 months, you could get away with not telling anybody.
Let's give the example
of DNA tests in science class. This is where we first noticed it, and we're like, oh, because it actually happened personally to Whitney.
This is my son's story.
Yeah, where he...
Comes home from school.
Where Whitney heard about it from her kid, not from the school, that they were doing a DNA collection in the science class. And we looked at the law and we're like, oh, wait, the law totally wouldn't stop you from doing this because they're not holding on to it for 12 months. So in removing all references to that, we're making it clear that, you know, if you collect anything, regardless of how long you hold on to it, you do need to notify parents. So we have closed that loophole. Okay, next up, data governance plans. Now, you all had to do these last year, and we'll be doing them again this next year. And a lot of the plans already had some of this information in it, but we wanted to make it clear that all of them should have it. So one is that there needs to be a listing of, the roles, responsibilities, and authorities of the different staff members. Like this was in our template where it said, the student data manager should do X. The IT security manager should do this. The school principals do this, whatever. However it's organized, like that needs to be clear in your data governance plan is, kind of the governance organization. There also needs to be, previously the law just simply said you need to explain the expungement process for an individual who was a student but has turned, was it 23 years old? Was that the just completely arbitrary age? And we thought it needed to be clear that, no, you need to explain like your entire expungement process, not just for those cases. So it does have to, overlap a little bit with like records retention.
And I wanted to let you know that we will be creating a model expungement process document. And Dave is going to talk about data breach next. We actually have already a model data breach policy available.
Great. And that's the other thing is that, in most cases, data governance plans or maybe the IT security plan describe the data breach process response. This is actually, I think, really important. So we wanted to make it clear that, at the very least, the data governance plan needs to address that. And speaking of data breaches, so previously the Act didn't even ever use the term data breach. It referred to security breaches, and there's lots of things that can be a data breach that aren't necessarily a failure of security. So the language has been changed to say not just security breaches, but now says that you need to notify parents and students in any case of a significant data breach. So should that happen, we actually had a lot of back and forth with our users group as to, they didn't want it just to say data breach. It needed to like have some sense of importance. So we used the term significant in there. And I believe the Act also says the board will have to pass rules to make it clear what is considered a significant breach. So that should be coming in the future. Okay, collection notices. So this was in the Act before, but it was kind of confusing because there was, there was collection, there was disclosure, it was kind of putting them all together. So we've made it clear that, so annually you will need to provide parents with a collection notice, which basically needs to be a standalone document that lists all of the data you are planning on collecting that year on students. And then needs to define it either as necessary or optional. The idea behind this being that if it is necessary data, it's basically data you need in order to function as a school. Optional are things that are going to require a parental opt-in.
You're killing me, David. You're killing me.
Just give everyone a second there to enjoy that. Put a lot of thought into that yesterday. And so I imagine also we will be, I'll talk about it in a second, but I'm sure we'll be providing a model document that you can use for this, largely because I think we're all collecting very similar necessary information. The optional ones, that's kind of up to you. And then written consent, beyond the fact that the Act used to refer constantly to data authorizations, and FERPA talks about written consent. We removed, I'm pretty sure, all the references to data authorization and kept it with a line with FERPA with written consent. There was also something of whatever the opposite of a loophole is, an unintended obstruction, where it made it basically sound like if you were going to work with a vendor, you had to have a contract that listed very specific things, and if that vendor wasn't willing to do it, you couldn't do anything about that. And we had suggested before that if that was the case and the vendor wasn't willing to sign your contract, then you could just get written consent from the parents, and then it would be okay to share it. And we went back and looked at the Act, and that was not what it said. It seemed like actually you had to do it even if you had written consent. So we made it clear that, if there is a case where there is a vendor, I think it was the food handlers permit was one of the examples we were given, where they were unwilling to sign any kind of documentation from the district. And we said, well, just get written consent. Now it is very clearly written in the act that that is how that will work. So you may play Mother May I if you get the mom's
Or
permission.
father.
Or the dad.
Or the
Or,
guardian.
or whoever is acting in the place of a legal parent or guardian. All right, so with that said, how can we help? So we had a data governance plan template that was given out last year, and it was very one size fits all, and the one size was actually USB-E, because it was just our data governance plan with like taking out where it said USB-E and saying, you know, do a search and replace and put your name here.
Yeah.
And it was something I think we talked about this past year as we realized, you know, like different schools don't have data collection issues or data sharing the same way that USB-E does. We get hit up for lots of data from researchers, for example. So we have a very complicated system for deciding, you know, like when a data sharing agreement gets approved, when it doesn't. And in talking with lots of different groups, it became clear it's like, yeah, maybe you didn't need such a complicated structure. So I wanted to get some ideas from all of you. How do you think it would be helpful? Like we could have a template specifically for elementary or one that's more for secondary. It seems like secondary ends up sharing a lot more than just an elementary school would. We'd also talked about like we could have one that was made more for districts. A charter school tends to, I think, have many fewer students. In the chat, if you can let us know, like, what do you think would be helpful? We want to have more than just a here is a template. We want to break it up in a way that is meaningful and helpful for you so that you don't have to go through and delete large sections, but also that you wouldn't have to go and add large sections. I also am hoping for this next year to kind of move up a little bit in what I'm calling our data governance plan maturity model. Last year, we basically just checked things as do they meet a minimal standard, i.e. does it have all the things that the law says it needs to have? And I think that that was the only standard we really felt we could go off of. I think the next step up is, well, I would like to, and I'm going to need, I think, data managers' help with this, would be to look and say, it's like, okay, but does it really meet Alpine School District's needs? And this, again, goes back to talking with different charters and groups where it's like, some of you have very unique data needs. Some of you don't ever get called on to share data. Some of you do. Some of you, by virtue maybe the fact that you're a STEM-focused school, end up collecting a lot of data that other schools might not. So that's kind of the next level up is it's like, okay, does it meet the law? And then the next level is, does it meet what you need? And I would like to also, and this is probably best done through maybe like a tabletop exercise, could possibly done by a checklist where then it gets reviewed to determine how well it handles actual threats. Because these documents, it shouldn't just be like this thing that we make you do in October and that, you know, nobody knows about and nobody follows. It should be kind of a way to help protect yourself from privacy threats. So that you would be able to look and see like, well, you know, for example, in Idaho last week, there was a data breach where parents received information on way more students than just their own. And the idea would be that you'd be able to look at a threat that actually happened and say like, well, does our data governance plan, like, how does it protect us against this? Because I think there's going to come a point where, you know, you're going to be asked by your local school or charter board. They're going to ask you, it's like, well, that happened in this district. Are we safe? And this would be a really helpful way where you could say, well, our data governance plan addresses that threat in this way, this way, and this way. Ideally, we'll cover a lot of that in our own model document, so maybe you don't have to. But I think, honestly, that's something I want to do this year. I haven't told Whitney that yet, or I kind of told you about it. But like, we need to make sure that our own USB-E governance plan actually addresses threats. Because when we wrote it, it was just, you know, like, oh, it says it has to have this, so we're going to put this in. It says it has to have this, we're going to put this in. Just because it's in the law doesn't mean it's complete. And then kind of the other question is schedule. So I'm thinking we're, again, probably going to have like that October 1 date. So we're giving you that heads up right now.
It's in board rule.
Oh, it's in board's rule, so, you know, got to do it. But with that said, like, especially if we're going to have kind of more than one template, just kind of knowing your own schedules. When, I feel kind of weird asking this question because I know the answer is obviously today. But when, in terms of like your workload and knowing that like you will need it by October 1, if we could have a little discussion in the chat as to like how you want these model plans broken up, and like when is like kind of the absolute latest. Maybe that's a better way to put it. Not like when is the
Let's
first.
mention charter school
Yeah.
one would be good.
Yeah. When is the absolute latest that you could get these templates that they would be useful? So, not a lot of discussion in the chat. Other than, I mean, I agree with Megan. Something for a smaller charter school would be great. I think we'll definitely try to do something like that. See if anyone has any other ideas. July, says Robin. May 15th.
That's so specific. I like May 15th. That seems like. How about we split it?
And okay, because Sam, like, because obviously I like Robin's answer a little better. But also because, I mean, the school year isn't even over yet. Like, can you just kind of really quickly make a compelling argument as to why having the documents for next year would be most helpful before this school year ends?
Because we can prioritize.
Is we can do that if that's what's best.
Cancel.
But like if you can just like make that argument a little bit clearer to help win us over. Or Crystal also, okay. Challenge is having time to collaborate with people. Once you hit the end of the year, it's harder to get with people in your organization. I agree. July at the latest. We need a couple of months to review. Okay.
Okay.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Because certainly, yeah, you don't. If that's kind of what I'm hearing is that if it's in the summer, like you're not going to be able to actually do anything with it until the school year begins anyway, when people are back.
Let's do
Okay,
May.
we are holding ourselves May 15th.
We'll do it.
You've heard it here. Okay. Oh wait, no, I wanted to go back a slide, didn't I? I didn't want to do this one. Previous. Okay, same idea, but the collection sheet, which again, I feel like this one, I want to have a model notice as well, and just kind of base it on the Utrecht spec because like that's what we at least get from you. And that's what I think, at least at the state, we can pretty well do. So we could have that to start. And I think, again, like schedule-wise, we can probably shoot for around the same time, May 15th.
I think we're close on that.
It's the kind of thing, though, where it's like, you know, I'm really hoping, but again, maybe I'm just being naive, that the schools, we're all kind of collecting very similar data, that there's no one out there with a very different data collection than you know, other schools where, you know, it would differ by more than 10%, let's say. So it really is the kind of thing where it makes no sense for us to be doing 100% on our own. Are there any other ways you can think of before I pass the mic over to Greg that we could be minimizing this work? You can think about that now. You don't have to answer right now. Email me if you think of anything. But we got a date. I feel good about it. And here is Greg.
Oh my gosh. You almost knocked it. All right. Well, good thing you couldn't see that on video. All right. Just quickly, we kind of showed this video last time, and then we realized we had to go out and do some reshoots. And then we realized when we went to a conference that we were missing a few things, so we had to do another reshoot yesterday. So the idea is this weekend, by the end of this week, the video will be done and you can use it. This will mostly be for, I'm guessing, data managers or whoever works with data a lot. We've already done a video on FERPA exceptions, which covers the 4 main FERPA exceptions. David, what are those again?
School official.
School official.
Audit evaluation. Directory information.
And studies. Okay. I just wanted to get that last part from you, actually. But this video is going to cover some of the ones that you don't hear about a lot, but are still very important. That is the list right there. Those last 2 were the ones that we had to film yesterday because a lot of things. Regardless, that should be done really soon. What I wanted to... Oops, I guess that's not the right screen. What I really wanted to talk about, though, was where did that? Oh, okay, yeah. I am now working on the teacher relicensure course. Should be done by the 1st of July. We're probably going to be housing that on Canvas so that it will be easier for us to track. But we also have been asked by a lot of LEAs that we create something that they could use as well for part of their trainings, which is, I think, why we're going to use Canvas, because you can take some of the modules from that and use it for your own purposes. And Canvas is something that is used around the state for free because we have a contract with them. So this will be housed on Canvas unless we see a benefit of using something else. But throughout the course, it's going to be broken up into different modules, and all the different modules will be talking about the things that you see on the screen right now. So if you've ever had David and Whitney and I come and do a training at your school, you'll see that this list is very familiar because this is exactly what we cover, with some added additions. But we'll talk about FERPA, and these are all going to be probably videos that we're going to make, unless we decide that one of those subjects isn't going to be a video, and we'll just do something else with it. But for the time being, they're all going to be videos that then you can take and use in your own trainings. So FERPA exceptions, educational apps and websites, social media, Utah Student Data Privacy Act, Student Data Protection Act, Utah FERPA, and then we're going to talk about data security with those things listed under it. But the real question I have for you is, since we're kind of creating this with the idea of schools being able to use this as well for their annual training for student data privacy, is there anything else that is not on this list that you would like to see covered? If you want to put that in the chat. Just as a reminder, we want to make this as broad as possible. You may have specific needs that may only apply to you. We're not going to have the time to do something for one school. But, okay, we got vetting software. I like that one. I think that kind of goes into the educational apps and websites. We'll cover that for sure.
Yeah, that includes software.
Yeah. If there's anyone else, thanks Troy for that comment. If not, feel free to email me and say, hey, this is a need that we see. We're at the same time, I'm also creating, will the videos be available for editing? We'll probably post all the videos on YouTube, which you'll be able to download and add into your own thing. What we would ask, though, is that if you are doing it, and Robin, I'm glad that you are the one that is asking this question, because you did take one of our videos and edit it to the purpose of your school, which was, when we saw it, it was fine, but we would just want to make sure that you're not editing what we're saying and then taking parts out to make it sound like we're saying something else, if that makes sense. But if you're just taking a chunk out and then you're inputting your own, or you're not putting your own stuff in there, I would think that's fine. We want this to be a resource that you guys can use. We just don't want to have the message change. We don't want to be saying we don't want you to make it so that we're saying something that we didn't intend to say.
Yeah, and to be clear, because Robin showed us her video and it's great. And what it is because, again, we gave kind of a very general message, and she wanted to give a more specific message that applied to her district, that what we said didn't really work for Cache. So she completely removed one section where we were talking and shot her own section and put it in.
It's hilarious.
So yeah, those are the kinds of things we're talking about. Please go ahead and do that. We're making these for a general audience. If you feel like something we say isn't the message you want to get across, go ahead and cut it and put yours. But yeah, I don't think anyone was going to cut things so things would be taken out of context.
They're not going to do what they do in the Late Show with Brian Williams, where they mix all of his things to create a song. We imagine you're not going to do that.
That would be awesome.
Yeah,
if you do, let us see.
I mean, again, our concern is the accuracy, right? Don't cut things up and make it sound like FERPA says something it doesn't. But
Exactly.
if you want to cut it up and make a rap with auto-tune,
We encourage that.
we highly encourage it.
There was Peter's asking, what's Utah FERPA? Utah FERPA question mark, so I'm guessing you're asking what it is. It's very close to
Let me find
PPRA.
it.
We have a video on that if you would like to see it.
I'll get the link to that.
Yeah, we'll put the link in the chat. It's pretty much just like what information you can collect from students in terms of surveys or, I don't know. There's a whole list of it. We'll put the link in there and you can watch it. We try to make it a fun video, but informational at the same time.
It's funny.
Yeah, but all the videos that we're going to be putting onto the Canvas page, we're also going to be putting onto the USBE Media YouTube page, which is under the playlist of student data privacy. So if you have never seen any of our videos or want to just be up to date with what we're coming out with, we're always going to put it there first. So this video that we're working on now, finishing up with the other FERPA exceptions, that will go on there. I would hope no later than Monday.
And where is there? Did you say?
The Utah USB Media.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you just YouTube USB Media, there's a lot of videos because that's where USB houses all of their stuff. So make sure to go to playlists and look up
Here it is.
student data privacy. Yeah. And we'll put that in the chat as well.
Student.
So anyway, if you have any other suggestions on what we might include in that course, I'm also working on a course that we're going to be sending out. It's going to be similar to this, but it'll be more focused on like student teachers that we're going to send to colleges, because we've talked to the deans of the colleges around Utah and said this would be nice to have for student teachers that go into a school so that they understand what they can and cannot do in terms of talking about students and information that they can share and collect and those types of things. So they will also have their own little course that they can use because they've asked for the same thing. So and like I said, that the date for that to be completed is July 1. So look for that, and if you have any suggestions or questions leading up to that, please let me know soon, because we're working on scripts and filming, and once we get done with the filming, it's kind of hard to change things. So the earlier, the better. But anyway, I think that's it for me. Public reporting, is that you?
That's me.
I'll go
Are we gonna
in
do
front.
this?
Yeah.
Don't crash into a large, expensive television like David. So I wanted, we talked about this in the last webinar, and I wanted to make you aware that in July we will have on our website, which we are now on USBE's official website right there, we will be listing LEA and the compliance metrics that we have. This will be a simple checklist. It won't be any type of grade. We're going to publicly report this so that folks are able to easily see who to contact and where data governance plans can be found. So you might want to let your folks know that that will be happening in July. And now, it's back to you. I guess I can talk about this. Okay. Trainings. We have, and we talked about this in the last webinar as well, a number of trainings coming up. Here we have records management training. State Archives has this training in May, and I wanted to invite you to a USBE version of this on April 25th. We have 2 sessions that day. They're the same session. And if you can come along. We will not be recording this. This will be a little more focused on USBE record retention schedule, but certainly I think would be helpful because some of these other record retention trainings have to do with record retention in general, and that might include the Department of Corrections and Department of Health, and at least our training will be a little bit more geared towards education records. So you're welcome to come. It's a small room, so I'd ask that you RSVP me and let me know if you're coming. It's not too small of a room, but I want to make sure we can accommodate, and if we get a lot of people, we can open up another session. But Rebecca Shaw from State Archives will be there, and we will be walking through our system of how to kind of clean up record retention policies within USBE. I wanted to remind you of a training that just happened. We will be sending out the resources from this training and that link as soon as Jerry gets it to me. Let's see what else we have. Greg has been working with the regional centers, and we wanted to go visit each region in April. It looks like we got mostly in April. Then we have a little bit of an outlier. Q's is very special.
They were originally April.
They were originally April, were they?
Although, let me just say real quick, I don't know if Jason is listening, but I remember because you came to me at the TCC conference in Murray and asked if you could have a certain date, and I don't remember what that date was, but it was in April, and I said, no, we're meeting with a different one, but since then we have, we've rescheduled some of our days, right? Like, I think SC moved. They were originally on the 10th. So I guess the point is, like, if you, I don't know what day your meeting is, but we could still do April if it's opened up. Just
You want to?
You can contact
we should
Jason.
probably call him. That was weird to let everyone know this very personal message for Jason.
Maybe we can make this clip and send it to him.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Can we tell them exactly what? I think a lot of questions by the directors have been, what do you want to talk about? What's the agenda? And so
we wanted to focus on the metadata dictionary with these regional boot camps, but we are, if you're on top of that, we're totally happy to talk about data governance plans, or we can provide trainings. We want it to be a resource, and if you are a charter school or a district that is close to these regional centers, we would encourage you to come. And that's what we're hoping, that we'll use these regional centers as regional centers. And that, so if you're close to them, contact us or contact them. We can let you know the details. Some of this is a little vague, like we have the afternoon of the 17th. We need to know exactly when that is. And as we know, we'll update you.
Yeah, and one of the things I wanted to say, going back again to that the end of year report we said we're going to do, where we're going to say what everyone is at in compliance. We will go and look at the member districts and charters of each regional center with that list and say, okay. And I don't entirely want it to turn into a shaming thing,
No.
but I mean we'll be able to see. It's like, so we'll look at all the. I guess we're going to SCSC first. We'll look at Carbon and Emory and see like all of those things, and that's going to help kind of dictate what the discussion's going to be. I'm also confident, though, the metadata dictionary is going to be in there. I've been promising a long time some changes, some very good improvements. I believe maybe I should go check with our IT immediately after this, because several of them are just once our IT can get them pushed through to production. So we will hopefully be premiering these at these meetings so that we can go over with you and answer any questions about how to use the new functionality that will make it run hopefully a lot smoother.
And I think one of the biggest changes that might be pushed live soon, we're hoping before all of these trainings, I think that's likely, is the bulk upload option.
That's going to be the big one.
That's the big one. So
This is Bob. Can I
created
interrupt
the
there with
metadata
a
dictionary
question?
on time. It was usable, but now we're going to make that quite a bit easier for you to complete. Is that the last slide?
Yeah.
That's the last slide. Okay, well, we're ending a bit early today, so David, is there anything you want to sing, or no?
I think I want to sing.
You want to do something. So if you have any questions, we're here to listen to you in the chat.
Bob has a question.
Oh, Bob has a question.
Sorry, I turned off the speakers. You can't hear his
Oh.
question, so you'll have to.
Oh, okay. How do I hear? Well, Bob, will you write your question in the chat so that we can see that?
Is that Robert Potts? Is that Bob?
Oh.
Because we got the comment in the chat. Anyone that wants to attend at SCSC
can't hear me
is
if I-
welcomed.
You can't hear me
Would
if I
you like
talk.
us
Not
to
even
come,
participating.
Troy, down for the
Charters and
UEN
schools out,
Southwest Tech Forum in St. George on May 17th? Is that why you're mentioning it, or is that for something else? Okay.
Some other districts are going to other sites.
Okay.
The May 7th, what was our training that was on May 17th? Was that one of the records retention ones?
Oh, the de-identification.
Oh,
with,
okay. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, we'll record
Here it is.
probably whatever we do, like at a district level, or would Michael not let us record him? Do you think?
I don't think he would.
Yeah.
We won't be recording that with Michael Hayes, but I'm sure one of us could go down to.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
it was
we'll-
also more like
we'll
like
talk about that.
if they were going to the Southwest Tech Forum, then they can't come and hear about the de-identification.
Gotcha.
And with that one, we invited him from the U.S. Department of Education. He's very knowledgeable, specifically on the topic of de-identification. And our main goal at first was to have him look over what we're currently doing at the state board and make recommendations for ways we could do it even better.
Yeah.
But then, since he's part of PTAC, there was also the realization where it's like, oh, I mean, he can provide other trainings either to USBE staff or to any LEAs that are available to come up that day. So I am kind of sorry that I guess we're
And I think
holding it the same day as
yeah,
that. But
yeah, that was the de-identification training is quite particular to someone within your LEA that is in charge of de-identifying data. So because Michael Hawes is coming out, we're inviting you along to share in that resource. He's very good.
Okay, and I also have a question from Doug Johnson. Didn't you review our data plan when we sent you the links? And the answer is yes, assuming that I received the link. And again, that was just for this year. The law says it has to be annually. And it was also kind of like I was saying, it's like we checked it for like that just basic thing. Did it say what the law said it needed to say? We didn't really look at it, and I'm hoping, and that's going to require probably more coordination with you, that we can demonstrate that it's not just meeting the minimal requirements of the law. It's meeting like what your district needs.
But sometimes districts just want to meet the minimal requirements.
Yeah.
And I would say that the minimal requirements have changed because the Student Data Protection Act now asks for different things to be within those data governance plans. And so we'll be looking at those and providing feedback on kind of getting to that next level, because we do want this to be about compliance, and we know that doing the bare minimum is helpful, but we want to, others have asked for feedback, not just on compliance, but some other feedback on how to make it,
Yeah, and I guess that's also kind of the point where it's like it can be in full compliance and totally useless, especially like if no one in the district or charter knows about it or is using it. And so that's not going to be on a checklist, but that's something I want to do next year, is work with you all. And it's like, okay, how can we get buy-in? How can we make sure that this is relevant to people within your district, so that it is actually used, that it's not just a piece of paper that was marked off on a checklist. Yeah, and yeah, sure, Doug. Like again, like maybe it didn't change. Maybe like you already did this.
Yeah.
It was again like we don't know. We just know that we gave a model document. A lot of people used it. I don't know how well it necessarily met everyone's needs. Maybe you did your own document and it's great and you don't need our help, and that doesn't hurt our feelings much. But again, it's like I think we did a good job this year. I'm just looking at ways we can raise it up so it like what you're saying, it's not just about being compliant. It's about it being useful, and that's not a checklist. That's a like, hey, let's talk sometime.
Yeah.
And like, what are you seeing? Do you feel like it's useful? Are people using it? Is the word getting out that you have a data governance plan? Do the teachers know about it? Because they're the ones who are going to leak data inadvertently. 95% of all data breaches are human error. So that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to hear, Doug, that it doesn't sound like it will need to change much.
That's great.
Because that's not a problem either.
That's great. So they have an expungement process within their existing
They
data governance
might.
plan.
They might.
Oh.
Well, or he said it shouldn't change much.
Yeah. Makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah. Maybe a little.
Okay. We're gonna call it then, right?
Time. Yep.
Time.